For young kids at home, homemade math
Batteries, remember your breakfast, remember your plugs, and don't forget to bring your glasses if you need.
This is another craft that we could make. It's called a student in college. It's a practice SAT. And so the idea is, if you're in the 9th grade or you're in the 10th grade, the ACT is ticket to college. Time test, wear a watch. Where are my glasses? So let's say that I
joining us today on Homemade Math.
Welcome. We're so glad you're with us today on Homemade Math, and this is the ACT edition. We're delighted to be in the beautiful new library at Tates Creek High School, and our special thanks to Dr. Christy Field, the principal, and also a big thank you to Jennifer Eldridge, who's the wonderful librarian at this beautiful facility. Just a beautiful facility. And of course, we have Natalie Feast, who's the specialist in math for the Fayette County Public Schools. Natalie, as always, great to be with you. What is the ACT?
So the ACT is the American College Test, which is a ticket to college. But more than that, it's money. It's money and scholarships, but it's also keys money. Because remember, in the state of Kentucky, you get paid for what you score on the ACT. So it's great incentive for students in Fayette County.
Yeah. Now, when we think of the ACT, is this the test that only juniors can take, or can somebody else? I mean, well, who can take the test?
So this year, the state pays for every junior to take the test. But remember this, Fayette County, we pay for every sophomore. Yeah. So today, our audience is families of and students that are sophomores and juniors, because we're all taking the test in March.
Yes.
Now, and I should add also, remember, anyone can pay to take the ACT.
Right.
It's provided for our students.
Yes, exactly. And I want to reiterate again, I want to say a thank you to the legislators of the state of Kentucky. We're very fortunate because they had the foresight to see this years ago. We were one of the first states to do this, and the legislature pays for every junior to take the test, which is really something special. And again, thank you to the Fayette County School Board, who pays for every 10th grader here in Fayette County to take the test. Now, this year, the ACT has a window. What is a window?
So the window is this. In previous years, we all took the ACT on one day. We had a certain day, a specific day. Not this year. Things are changing. Judy, I brought you a pie. I'm just going to open this up, this cherry pie. I bought this croak. Here's you a cherry pie. I also made this pie because this is what I want our students to know. Baked this pie this morning for our TV crew when we leave here today. Y'all, does this not smells so good? Because here's what I want our audience to know. This year, the ACT, Pie Week. I'm not sure which day. It's going to be on a window. So it might be on the 12th. It might be on Wednesday the 13th. But it's going to be Pie Week. So your big takeaway today, first of all, is ACT in Fayette County is going to be on Pie Week, the week of March 3.14, sometime the March 14th. Pie. Aren't you excited about that? We're not going to forget that. We're going to remember when we're having Pie Week. ACT on Pie Week.
ACT on Pie Week. Now, what do students need to do on the day of the test?
First of all, we always remember that if you are someone who wears glasses, okay? So let's think about this. I'm a person, the ACT is a very long test.
Yes, it is.
It's over 3 hours. So if I'm a person who wears glasses, you wear your glasses on ACT day. So on Pi Day, when we come to our school, we're going to wear our glasses if we're glasses-wearing people. And the most important thing we're going to bring is our confidence with us. We have been preparing for the ACT forever. Since we were kindergartners, we've been preparing for the ACT, in particular since middle school. So this is the Feast family bag I wanted to bring and just remind everybody, because this is what we always brought an ACT at my house. You may want to bring a watch. This is a timed test. So I brought the beautiful, fancy bling watch, but this is to remind you, you have to bring a watch. 60 minutes for 60 questions for math. We're timing that. It's going to go by so quickly. We're also going to bring our pencils, because even though we take a test on a computer, our teachers are going to distribute paper for us, scratch paper, and we're going to have to work all those problems. You bring the pencils, moms and dads, families, grandmas, aunts, everybody, send pencils sharpened on those days. Also wanted to remind everybody about our calculators. Now, I was saying bring the batteries. Judi always reminds us, bring your batteries because you never know. But remember also, sometimes the Feast family, we have calculators like the Inspires or a CX that might need to be plugged in like you do your cell phone. So if you need to charge your phone, do that like 2 days ahead of time. But in Pi Week, we're going to be bringing all that. Also on test day, in addition to what we bring, remember families at home for homemade math, we have to have breakfast. We're taking a test that happens to be over 3 hours. It's an endurance test. It is so long, and you need your brain ready to go. So many kids will tell me, Miss Feast, like, I'm cool, and like, I don't eat breakfast, I just eat lunch. On that day, families, please eat. I was thinking maybe even a peanut butter sandwich, you know, whatever it happens to be. But definitely bring a banana out the door, whatever you like for breakfast, oatmeal, pancakes. We're going to make sure Pop-Tart to go, but we eat something, Judi, on that test day so that we come prepared with all of our materials and our mind ready as well.
Okay, now you've told us what we can bring. What should we not bring?
Oh, that's easy. No cell phones.
No cell phone.
We are not allowed.
I mean, I can't even put it in my pocket.
Well, you can put it in your pocket. Matter of fact, the school will tell you. So families at home, don't call and say, hey, how's the test going? No cell phones. You cannot use your cell phone as a calculator. That's an important thing to remember. No cell phones, no dictionaries, no extra materials. Literally what we brought in our homemade math baggie, that's what you can bring. Your calculator, your glasses, sharpened pencil, batteries. Yeah.
How many, and we had this question last year, how many pencils should I bring? Should I bring a couple of extra just in case one breaks, or, you know?
So you've got a over 3 hour exam. You're taking over an endurance test, a long ACT. Bring more than one pencil because you're going to be writing a lot. What if some pencil lead breaks, or what if it gets dull? Be prepared. You might want to click eraser. Make sure that you may have a special ink pen that you love, but bring writing utensils that you love.
Okay. Now, another thing is, what will be on the math test? What's it going to cover? And what does the test book look like?
The math test happens to be 60 questions in 60 minutes. And during that time, you're going to find out that the questions are set up from those that are the least challenging to those that are the most challenging. When you look at your test booklet, you're going to have 5 choices. This is different than other areas because some areas have 4, but we have A, B, C, D, E, 5 choices. To remember on those 5 choices, this is a hint. They go in order from least to greatest in value. So the least amount will always be A, and they go increasing order for the choices. Questions go from least to greatest in difficulty on the test.
Now, if I can do some of these questions in my head, can I do that, or do I have to write everything down?
This is a timed test. So you always want to make sure, for example, that you're using your time wisely. But I'm going to show you 2 examples of problems that kids do in their head, and you should, because the math that's on the test, some of these, remember, we start out at pre-algebra. I brought 2 examples today I want to share with you. This item is on every other ACT. ACT says every other exam, an item like this will be on there. For example, where you have absolute value and you find the difference of that. So many, and this is one of the most missed items on the ACT, which is about 7th grade material. Because here's what happens. Kids do it in their head and they see the math 4, -4, and they find the difference. It's a common error to do 8. But if you just did it in your head in class today or at home, you know it's 0. So doing them in your head is great. You need to save all the time you can. And here's another example that happens to be on every other ACT. A rational number between 2 fractions. It's going to be on there. I mean, on every other exam, this is going to be a test item. They'll give you 2 fractions. You have to find the one in the middle. So many times kids think I can do it in their head. Oh, what's halfway between 1/5 and 1/3? Has to be a 4th, right? No, you'll miss it. You need to check your work. So when you actually work out the problem, maybe you find common denominators, maybe you convert to a decimal, you find out that the answer was D, 4/15. So always do things in your head if you can because it saves you time, but check because all the questions count the same. 60 items and everyone counts the same. So you want to make sure that you're picking the correct answer even if you do it in your head. Check your work.
Okay. Why is the ACT so crucial for parents and students? Why, because we emphasize the math score every year. Not that the other things on the are not important, they are. Why is it so crucial?
So there's a specific reason that we target the math score. We have this show today because it's that important. The thing is this, when you apply to colleges, you actually submit the overall ACT score, and then you also have to submit your math score. So let me say that again. When you apply to colleges, you submit 2 scores, your composite ACT and your overall math score. And the reason is the math score is a placement score, and it determines what math class you're allowed to take in college.
Okay. Now, when we look at this, let's look at the target score for the math test, because we're used to dealing with 100, and we're not dealing with 100 points with this test. I want to say that again. This isn't based on 100, but tell us about the math score so parents and students can understand what that means.
On the ACT, the top score is a 36. If I score a perfect math score, it would be a 36. That's not our target score. We want to score at least a 22, because if we score a 22, then that means, and that's getting about half the items correct. A 22 means that I can take college algebra when I go to college. 19 is a benchmark. That's 27 items out of the 60 correct. That's a benchmark goal, because I can still take a college credit bearing class. So a perfect score is a 36. A 5, you can get a score of 5 with not even hardly putting your name on the paper. But the thing to remember is this. It's not out of 100, like you said. It's a scaled score.
Okay. Well, here's the thing, too. You've touched on it a little bit. But how would you suggest in answering the math questions? What's a good way for me to answer those math questions? You've touched on it a little bit, but give me some more hints on how to do that.
How to answer a math question. This is important. When you see the math items and you know how to work the math problem, then you work it. Then you look back to see the answer. Here's the great part, Judy. On the ACT, they're all multiple choice. So guess what? The answer is there. If you know how to work the math problem, you work it, and then you look back and find the correct answer. But let's say, I'm not exactly sure how to work that. You've got the answer choices. So you choose, and then you substitute that value back into the problem. And that's how you solve it. And that's how you work the math problems.
Okay, now you talked about this, but let's figure out what's the best way to budget my time with this test, because we know we've got so many in an hour. How do I want to budget my time? Should I skip a question? What do I need to do?
So you never want to skip a question, because there's no penalty. So let's make sure our families know that and students know that. No penalty. So you always guess. Make a best guess. Eliminate those that you're not sure about, but always best guess. Talk about time. Sometimes people might say, well, you've got 60 minutes, 60 items, a minute each. Not so. The first 20 items, actually, you need to do faster. From items 20 through 40, they're about a minute to solve each. And then those at the end, they actually will take longer. So you want to save some time for that. The time is going to fly by, so be prepared.
You have mentioned before, Natalie, when we've done the program for our friends, that it's a good idea to go back and answer those questions, because you may logically hit the right answer just even guessing.
You never want to leave any blanks. So if at the end of the test, they may get a 5-minute warning or 2-minute warning or 1-minute warning. You know what you do if you have any left empty? You guess, and you guess the same letter choice all the way down. You never leave any blank. And if you have to guess, you always guess the same letter choice.
Now, we've already talked about that you're going to need a calculator. And don't forget the batteries. We are going to mention that a couple, because that's really important. I mean, seriously, you've got to remember that. So we know we can use a calculator. But what are some of the common errors that our students make on this math test?
The most common errors happen to be this. The most common errors are not answering the question that the textbook, that the question on the ACT asks. So you'll see the question up on the computer screen, and then guess what happens? It says, you're going to see a picture of a circle, and it's all described with lots of numbers, and it says, hey, what's the radius? But it lists the diameter. You didn't answer the question. So the most common error is the question is not answered. You'll solve it and you'll get an answer. For example, you may solve for X, but back in the question, guess what it said? What is X, Y? And so just be so careful to answer the question.
Yes, that's the most important point. Now, we've talked a little bit about math prep, but give us a little more information on what kind of math prep is the best.
The best math prep is what works best for you. Because, okay, let's face it, like this is not fun. Like it's not like, hey, let's all go study for the ACT math. Like, I mean, it would be for me, but I'm not sure it would be for everybody. So whatever you will do, that's best. Some kids like to be on the computer and on their Chromebook, and they can study that way. Other students like resources and books. Some people like to study with a friend. Some people like for there to be like silent room. Some people like a little background noise. You have to figure out what works best for you because you have to study. You have to study before the test.
What raises a math score?
A math score will be raised by answering 2 additional questions. So if I took the ACT last year and I got 27 items out of 60 right, and I want to raise my score 1 point, I need 2 more answers correct. 2 additional items raises a score 1 point.
Now, for a lot of our friends, a lot of people feel because the ACT is a national test that you can't study for that. But that's not really true, is it? We can study ahead of time for this test.
We must study ahead of time. We must. Here's the first reason why, for all students. I wanted to show this little form here. This is just a formula study sheet that Feast Boys loved. Your teacher's probably going to give you one too. Or maybe you can make your own. That would be amazing. There are approximately 75 formulas that you have to remember for the ACT for the math section. You don't get any formulas. So if you're like, what was the Pythagorean theorem? There's Ms. Feast, there's 9 area formulas. Do I need to know all those? Yes. There's 6 different volume formulas. Yes. What is the percent of change formula? What is slope given 2 points? What is arc length of a sector? What is it? All of these, page after page, formulas, 75 that I figured out that could be fair game. So you have to study your formulas in particular.
Well, now we're going to move over here because we're going to show you some resources for parents because parents always want to know what we have on the website and what's available. And we have some wonderful books that will help parents. And very fortunately, we're going to take the time and show them. Natalie, would you help us go through these a little bit?
Sure. So these are just resources that I picked up from local libraries. I would encourage every student. What you need to do is go see your librarian and ask, does your school have a sample booklet? You can also, I went to like the Half Price Books, our bookstores have them. I went to our public libraries and they have these books. You can also pick up free workbooks from your counselor at your school. They're all practice tests. You have to do sample ACT items that are released items. Mm-hmm. That's the kind of problems that we want to have students solve. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter whether you get a free booklet, you have your math teacher make a photocopy that you got in your public library or your school library, you check out books and you work these at home. You want sample items that have been released in the past. Sample items. I also wanted to share, like some kids like flashcards, and I picked this up from one of our schools. They just had math strategies, Judy. They're like on a ring. And so they're kind of flashcard problems that you could just, if you were even traveling, if you're on a travel team, if you're an athlete, if you're whatever, and just wanted to pick up something and study, or just at home in your bed, you're like, I like those flashcards, Miss Feast. Those are an option as well. But these are resources that we can check out. Parents can go and check out from the library. You can call the school and actually see if they have those. That's a legal move.
Oh, like for instance, it says here on long word problems, be sure to read the stem first. So you can have somebody doing this. Also, I want to add that we've learned over the years that a lot of times you can find these wonderful books at garage sales, or borrow them from somebody who did it the year before. But these are really good resources.
This is another thing. There might be an ACT book that might say 2022, 2017. That's okay. The ACT's been around for 65 years. And so the math section's still the math section. Yeah. So the math hasn't changed. So
2 plus 2 is still 4.
It is. So if you find a book that was older, I love that idea because you could have a neighbor who had bought one for their child. Idea. Go for it. They're all really great resources.
Really take these resources down because they're a big help and they will help you help your students study.
I wanted to also go and show some websites.
Yes,
now
please
this is one that I'm super excited about because it's one that I created for our students. Let's go over here, and it's called, this is a bit.ly. So if the students are sitting in class today, they're going to see, guess what? Miss Feast gave us a bit.ly, and I thought I had a copy. Here we go, but it's bit.ly/feastmath, okay? The thing to remember is this, if you're on a Chromebook and you're watching this, or if you have a computer at home, bit.ly/ F-E-E-S-E, A-C-T. Now here's the thing. All those have to be capital letters. F-E-E-S-E, A-C-T. All have to be capital letters. This is great. Up in the upper left corner, you're going to see the ACT practice with the Kentucky Virtual Library. Go to your counselor. Go to your counselor and they will hook you up, or you can just do this bit.ly, but they have access to the Kentucky Virtual Library. All you have to do is log on with your single school sign-on at your school. Going back to the bit.ly, I love this practice test. These are free practice tests. These are great questions. They're released questions. The first one happens to be a sequence. There are more down here. You're going to see that there's ACT math practice 1, 2, 3, 4. Love that. Do those. On the bit.ly, all I'm doing is clicking in the second column at the bottom, preparing for the ACT. And I attach that so that students can go in and read these. This is awesome. My favorite one happens to be the far right corner at the bottom. The far right corner at the bottom is one that's called Magoosh. And in the Magoosh, you'll notice Ms. Fee said go down to, first of all, scroll down to page 15 to 23. Those are the math questions. Look at that. Right on the front, what of the following numbers is between 3/5 and 5/7? I told you that's going to be on there every other test. But here's the cool part about Magoosh. If you scroll all the way down to page 54, and you're going to be like, Ms. Feast, what's on 54? This is the greatest thing ever. Now, this is the whole test. That's why I'm actually picking out the exact pages. I'm so sorry we're having to scroll here. Scroll all the way to 54 because what you're going to see are the videos that show you how to solve the problems. 54, view explanations. Holy cow. I can push that button and it's going to show me how to solve every problem on the math test. Isn't that the greatest thing ever? So that was the far right corner, the one that says Magoosh. That's the one that has the videos. They are so awesome because it explains how to work every problem. Also, remember, your math teacher could assign you some IXL. We have IXL practice that you can do. You've got your books, you've got the computer, you've got IXL at school, you've got lots of options for studying for the ACT, formulas. Think about all of that and what you do.
Okay, another thing, a question we get a lot from parents is the ACT a one-time only test?
It's one-time only paid for by Fayette County Public Schools or legislators, but you can take the test as many times as you want, and you should, because here's why. If you take the test again, data shows that 60% of students who take the test a second time increase their score. So let's think about that. If let's say, for example, you don't do well on test day, or you're not satisfied with your score, guess what? 60% of kids who take the ACT a second time, you pay for it, you take it a second time, guess what? You're at 60% did better. How wonderful is that? So give it a try.
So can a parent purchase the ACT test that their student took?
Yeah. Oh, purchasing the test. That's a great question. When we take the test at school, you cannot. So when you take the test at school, what's going to happen is to your home, you're going to get a letter that says, here's your score for each area. This is how you did. Overall, this is your composite. This is your math score. So you'll get that letter at home. That's when we take it at school. Now, if you pay for the test, you can also pay for what they call a test information release. So let's say I'm going to take the test in April. I'm going to take the test in June. This is a great tip for parents and students. For an additional $32, the ACT will mail you the correct item. They'll say, this was the correct answer. Here was your answer. And they'll send you the test booklet that you do when you pay for it. When you pay to take the ACT, you take it pencil paper. When we take it at school, you take it on a computer. But paying that $32, the additional $32, is very important. So when you pay to take the test, sign up for that.
Oh, that's a great idea. Now, does the ACT change every year?
So the items change. The items change within the problem, but you're always going to have the same thing. 60 questions, 60 minutes, covering the same types of math topics. Remember, about 40% algebra and pre-algebra, about 40% either coordinate geometry or plane geometry, about 15% of the topics that we learned in Algebra 2. There will be 4 items that deal with trigonometry. So remember your SOHCAHTOA because it's going to come in handy for right triangle trig.
Now, let's talk a minute for our friends about what if I don't test well? You touched on it a little bit, Natalie, but let's go back to that because it's very important. So it might be a bad day. You know, you may not be feeling well, something was wrong, whatever. But remember, you know, it can happen anywhere. And there are some kids who do not test well. What about that, Natalie? What suggestions do you have for somebody that has that?
So if you want to right now go ahead and pay to take an additional ACT, please do so. The Feast Boys took the ACT 5 times. I mean, the more you take it, the better you will score every year. Remember, ACT means money. When you start practicing, I wanted to show you kind of what I do to practice. I actually go through a test or practice test or worksheet. I go through and just actually outline what it happens to be first. Because if I remember how to do perimeter, if I remember how to do slope, then I'm not going to spend time on that. You practice what you cannot remember how to do. That's really important. So preparing ahead of time will make your confidence better. We're bringing our confidence on that Pi week. Week, we're having ACT. Bring your confidence. And the more you practice and you know the format of the testing, what you're going to see on the screen, the 5 choices, you're going to do so much better.
And today we're so used to getting everything right away. How long does it take usually on an average before we get those test results back?
When we take the test at school, it's going to take about 8 weeks. So that's why a lot of students and families at home for homemade math will want to go ahead and pay to take the test one more time in advance. So you're going to take it in March during Pi Week with us. But you could also take that test in February, in April, in June, in July, and you pay at home. So go ahead and sign up to take it again.
Now, another area that we've had a lot of parents over the years that, you know, or students have said, well, gee, I don't need to take the ACT because I'm planning to go another direction with my career and I'm not going to plan to go to college, so I don't need to take this test. Why is it still important that everybody take this test?
So the thing to remember is this. That ACT score that we're going to take in March during Pi Week, it stays with you for the rest of your life. So let's say you change your mind when you're 25 or you're 40 or you're 50 and you change your mind and you want to actually go to college, that ACT score is with you. But here's the best part. You also do an interest inventory with ACT and they send you a letter back and says, hey, guess what? You're really good with working with people, or you're really good with things, or you're really good with data. Have you ever considered working it with the forestry department? Have you ever considered being a computer programmer? Have you ever considered being a math teacher? So those are things that you'll get an interest inventory back that really helps with careers, because a lot of students are still struggling with, what am I going to be when I grow up?
We also have had something since COVID, that some colleges are now saying that test scores are optional. And why is it important that your math score should be in some of those scores that you may give to them, math optional as the math connection? Why do we want the test optional and the math connection? What is that? Explain that to us.
Test optional came out during COVID, but it does not impact math. And that's what I want to say to every student. It's kind of a false advertisement, because here's the truth. When you go to apply to colleges, I told you, they want 2 scores. They want your ACT composite, which is optional, but they want that math score. Even if you don't send your composite, they're going to ask for a math score. Matter of fact, because here's why. You have to have a benchmark score to take math classes in college. They don't hide this. If you go, for example, to EKU, it says right here, you have to submit a score for a placement. And if you don't have an ACT score then guess what? Here's EKU. You got to take the placement exam. You got to take ALEX. You got to take college readiness benchmark. You got to take the Coyote. Y'all, just score great on the ACT during Pi Week, and that's solved. Here's another one for you, BCTC. It says right here in black and white, it says Coyote. It says placement exam. You've got to take a test. So perhaps Louisville is called the AccuPlacer. It doesn't matter where you go. You have to send a math score. So your ACT math score should be the very best.
And the most important thing is, let's kind of go over just a real quick summary to let everybody know. Come prepared. Make sure you do not bring your cell phone. Bring your calculator with batteries. Have a good breakfast. But the most important thing is to study now. With the coming of this program, you've got at least 6 weeks that you can prepare for the ACT. Natalie, you want to add anything to that?
Even if you have 6 days, if you have 6 hours, here's the thing. The more you study, the better you'll be prepared. With formulas, study what you do not remember. Ask your math teacher. Ask your math teacher for help. Your math teacher is going to start giving ACT reviews. Pay attention. When you don't know how to solve that, raise your hand. Go back to Ms. Feast's Bitly. Do the choice board at home. It's fun. You will learn. You will be so proud of yourself. Families at home. You've got to help on test day, getting sleep 2 nights before, not
Yes.
1 night before. It's got to be 2 nights ahead to make an impact. And remember, if you have pie clothes, like me, you have pie clothes, wear your pie attire, because you will be the cutest person taking the math test that week. I'm sure your math teachers will also be wearing their pie shirt like me.
I bet you they will be too. Again, we want to thank the wonderful people here at Tates Creek High School. We want to thank again the principal, Dr. Christy Field, who just did an outstanding job letting us come to do this today. Jennifer Eldridge, who is the librarian here. We were so grateful for that. We also want to take a moment to thank Robert and Linda and Carrington and Vernon, our wonderful crew behind the scenes that you don't see that puts this program together. And when we see you again, we will be back in the spring with another program on homemade math. But in the meantime, please remember, as we always say, our philosophy with homemade math is that parents can build a bridge between math and their children do in school and what they do at home. Mostly have fun with the math and know that everything that you do to encourage and promote math does make a difference. Have a wonderful ACT this year, and we'll see you soon. Thanks for joining us. Thank you, Natalie.
Thank you, Judy.